Hello everyone. I am pleased to have talked to Mr. Andrij Dobrijanski. Some say he is the most visible face of the Ukrainian community in the United States. He is a popular expert about the Russian war in Ukraine. So for Americans, he is maybe no unknown, but I think it is necessary to introduce him to our audience in Germany. Andrij Dobrijanski is spokesperson and content creator of the UCCA, the Ukrainian Congress Committee of America, which unites 30 national Ukrainian organizations in the United States who represent altogether 3.5 million Ukrainians in North America. Andrij and I have met already in 2015 when the war in Ukraine was first started. Those days, the Crimean Peninsula had been occupied and annexed by Russian soldiers without national insignia, the so-called Green Men, and Putin started a war in eastern Ukraine, in the Donbas, with the help of separatists who in reality were commanded by the Russian Secret Service FSB. It is going to be a very interesting talk, and I promise it's becoming increasingly interesting towards the end. I am Christoph Müller. Let's jump right into it. So glad to see you, Andrij. I just saw you on another video from the UCCA. Yes, and you look quite the same. So you're just in the office.
I live in front of a camera that I don't have time for anything else.
So please tell me how much time do we have then in the
Oh,
moment?
this is the last interview of the day, so you tell me how long you need.
I have no idea how long I need for, because no,
why don't we start and see how much energy we have? How about that?
that's the point.
Okay.
And I wanted to ask you, Andrij, what were your feelings when Donald Trump came into office for the first time? No, not for the first time, for the second time. No. Yeah, sorry.
Right. We are in that period where we have just over 2.5 months between the election, which was decided fairly quickly, and I had a sense that it would go either way fairly quickly, as opposed to the worries about it being dragged on as it was in 2020. We have these 2.5 months now where we are getting news out of President Trump, but we do have another administration in power. We have a lot of meetings taking place now and for the next few months with the current administration. That includes Congress, which is in session right now, as well as we have to meet with as many newly elected members as well at the same time. So a lot of the things that we were worried about, or we were finding energy with leading into the election, although that has been thrown out. There's no point to really dwell on the rhetoric that was used beforehand, even for the people who won, who are really the most consequential people. Some of them may have said horrifying things about Ukraine up until the day of the election. It is now the time for Ukrainian activists, anybody who supports Ukraine, to stand in front of anybody with any possibility of helping Ukraine, whether they've said horrible things or not. As I was asked on election night by a channel in Ukraine, are there people you prefer working with? And I said, anybody who can help Ukraine, I will debase myself to make sure that Ukraine is heard by them.
Yeah.
And if we can even if we can get one slight bit of help for Ukraine, that's worth having a conversation with people who may not have thought of helping Ukraine before. So in my mind, it's just a big mess of work that needs to happen as far as my Ukraine advocacy. Now, on the other side, I'm also an American citizen. So we all have our independent thoughts, and for the women of this country, for many minority groups in this country, this is going to be a very difficult time. And for those who could consider rule of law to be important, we will probably see very swiftly pardons being granted to many people who rebelled on January 6th and other sad days of our history.
I'm also a caricature artist, as you know, maybe.
Yeah.
And when Trump was elected for the first time, I made this very horrible caricature, Uncle Sam chopping off his own hand. You might know. Do you know this one? I can show it. I can show it to you, and it is this one, and that was the first feeling I had when he was elected the first time. So I had the feeling that Uncle Sam chops off his own hand with Trump, and democracy will be gone. Maybe this he might be really a threat for democracy, but now I want to tell you something else. It's right after Trump got elected, I started to change my feelings also, and
Hmm.
it's not about feeling here. It is really about changing things. And
Yes.
I remembered very well also that Trump might not be so horrible as many of the Germans think, me included,
Hmm.
before,
Hmm.
because Trump is a guy who is also able to change things, because
Hmm.
he's a with a big sledgehammer. He changes things sometimes, but he changes things. And
Yeah.
if we could get him really to to change things in the good direction, then it might come out a good thing out of it, because Joe Biden was also like so he was not doing a lot
Yeah, the
as
indecisiveness
yes,
really hurt us.
yes,
But it's interesting because you said you said that as many people in Ukraine believe that now is a possibility for change with the election of Trump, because at least there will be change. So we don't know what kind of policy he will have officially, because it's a lot driven by his own personal
yeah,
feelings. But you started saying that you addressed your German friends of they might be surprised. Well, there's also the bilateral relationship between the United States and Germany that has plenty of potential to be either ruined completely or severely strained. So there's plenty of things, especially for a country with a strong economy, a strong central bank, a strong position throughout the EU. I think any country like that, Trump would see as a potential, um, not necessarily an ally, but some position to cut down, perhaps. And so there's plenty of things for the German U.S. or also the EU-U.S. Bilateral relationship
yes,
that can be harmed, even as we might celebrate some positive changes for Ukraine. And it is an opportunity to change policy in Ukraine. Um, we won't know what happens until January 20th here in the United States. But certainly, we have on the one side an administration going out the door, and they're going to have to wrap up everything that they have been planning for 4 years.
yeah.
So we know that we're getting more weapons out of Biden, unfortunately, at the very last minute. But at the same time, there may be. From the sense that Trump wants to be seen as a major negotiator, there may be a ramping up of support for Ukraine in any case from the United States, just to get to the negotiating table, which we know has been a problem from the very beginning. I think it's been over 200 negotiating sessions since 2014, all that have brought nothing.
Wow. What do you think about the possibility for Biden, who is now a so-called lame duck,
Hmm.
which he might have been already before?
Hmm.
Um, Sorry when I'm talking that about
Sure.
your president, but um, what is the do you see any possibility that Joe Biden will now have the chance to alter his policy of limiting long-range missiles, all those
Right.
kind of
I
things?
think I think the major priority for Biden, it was ruined in October, and prior to the election, his team was really scrambling to reschedule the Ramstein summit for leaders, and they still have that in mind to have happen sometime in December, to have a final Ramstein. We will see if that happens. I think he wanted to have that happen after he met with for the 2 hour conversation he had with Trump yesterday. I think Biden wants to talk to the other leaders at the Support Ukraine group to let them know what the future will hold in his estimation after having the conversation with Trump. There's also plenty of other things happening. We have the Biden just arrived in South America, so he will not only be meeting with Xi Jinping, but he'll be attending the G20 summit, which is happening this weekend. There are plenty of international contact periods, which is traditionally what happens for a president, either in the very end of his term or even during the lame duck of his final term. This is the period when George W. Bush, for instance, visited Ukraine for the only time during his presidency was during the lame duck session. So I anticipate President Biden will try to squeeze in as many international visits as possible. Unfortunately, no international agreements can come to term because of the way that the Republicans will control the Senate in the coming year. So any votes, they will dictate what they support or not. Probably not likely, given that it would originate from the Biden administration. There's plenty of things for him to occupy his time. There's also, as he is trying to ship all these weapons that he allocated budgetarily, he wants to send them out the door before the end of the year. There's also the issue that he wants to solidify whatever he can to save his own legacy, which will be rapidly changed over once Trump comes in with executive orders. So I think there's going to be some opportunity to
Mhm.
squeeze in items because the government is due to shut down in December. So unless we address that issue, it'll be an issue for uh, they have to pass something. Can we include Ukraine in that? Can we include some domestic priorities, meaning the Biden association administration? We'll see. We'll see what they can squeeze into an agreement to extend the budget until September of next year.
Yeah, sounds a lot of quite complicated, all that.
Oh yeah.
Um, I am the whole situation is getting worse and worse, despite so many so many scholars or scientists or experts knowing exactly what is going on, and they are
Hmm.
t telling so many warnings about. But despite all that knowledge, the the development seems to go into the wrong direction. And rightist parties who are all fans of Vladimir Putin,
Yeah.
they get elected, as here in Germany, the AfD and so on, and Wagenknecht, you might know those also,
Hmm.
maybe. And Trump with Elon Musk. This is the master question. What can we do that this development will be going into the right direction?
Well, nothing will be going in the right direction from the very beginning, and I share your concerns right from the day of the election. My concerns were immediately, how does this affect the movements throughout Europe, including Orban, including Fico, including what's happening in Germany and other countries, where not so much because of left and right, but just because of populism. And we know
Yes.
how his advisor Steve Bannon has been visiting with those countries and speaking with many members of populist political
Hmm.
parties.
Hmm.
And this is a shot in the arm prior to elections coming up in 2025 for many different countries. I think this is similar to how the Brexit election affected the impetus for change in the United States. There were people who finally said in 2016, well, let's take a chance with Trump, and that happened again this time through a very
Hmm.
concerted effort
Yeah.
of constant alternative media saying that the economy is horrible, saying that you're not going to get a job, saying that Biden is the reason for all of this, and not a single time, even as them being media, whether it's Fox News or other outlets, not explaining what the actual rate of inflation is, what the actual
Yeah.
rate of
Yeah.
annual wages going up.
Yes.
So it's for me, it's really there has to be a great reckoning with the future of media throughout the world, because it's clear that the current system that has existed for many years, that has been augmented by corporate media,
Hmm.
after not all countries have a unit such as I'll just say BBC in one country, or we have public broadcasting television in the United States. It's very much not impactful at all. So there's no one source in the United States to have something like a BBC,
But
or at
what you
least
have, yeah, excuse me when I interrupt you here.
yeah.
You say the media system is going to change, and obviously it is the case. And now let's take the Twitter, which is called now X, because Elon
Hmm.
Musk has bought it with his billions of dollars,
Hmm.
and he's got now the power to alter the the opinions
Right.
somehow. and this is the most dangerous thing, and that's why I wonder how the still democratic countries,
Right.
they can get aware of the danger which is going on here, and they are not only chopping off her hands, they are chopping off the whole branch where they're sitting on.
Hmm.
It's this is so dangerous, and you and I, we understand, and the Ukrainians, of course. But how can we bring the governments of the still democratic countries to the
There,
awareness that here we
right.
they have to really invest money, as the Russians do on the wrong side. We have to invest money to change the media here. What can we do here?
I'll say that the other parts of the Western world are slightly ahead of the United States in this respect, because the United States does have a long tradition of having unrestricted free speech, and that has been really used to the detriment of a lot of uh, people's sovereign rights, given the fact that disinformation can spread pretty rapidly if you have no limits on what can be said and printed. The level of hate speech laws throughout Europe, um, I think Europe is a little bit of ahead of already prior to the wave of populism that has come on. So Europe has a little a leg up because they addressed hate crime and hate speech prior to the United States. The United States has a constitutional amendment prohibiting that, and people have put in a lot of checks, have tested that over the centuries, and it's so long as that amendment is in place, much like the Second Amendment, which guarantees people absurdly the right to have a handgun, not just a handgun, but automatic weapons.
Oh,
Sorry,
yeah, yeah.
that's really the problem. The fact that that exists and blocks any meaningful legislation against that, I think the rest of the Western world probably has a little bit of advantage for the United States. But right now, we're all in the same mess where we need to understand that populism is rising, and there's not much we can do.
Yeah, it sounds not good, but I don't know. What I always have in my head is that the Americans, they are really in many ways the best nation in the world.
Hmm.
That's my opinion. They are top in developing technologies. They are top military country in the world, and they
Hmm.
are democratic leading nation of the world, and they have the best film producing industry, Hollywood.
Right.
And I mention this because the American films, they have such an impact. They are so good. And what I never understand is why don't those movie makers now see the situation and go in the right direction and make a film so that the people understand. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, for one thing, there is a biographical film about Donald Trump that premiered at different film festivals that will probably not be screened throughout the United States, not because people don't have a right to do it, but because film studios don't want to suffer any repercussions. So the film theater, sorry, they don't want to air it. So there's one thing about self-censoring because you don't want to be attacked by Donald Trump on Twitter or Truth Social. At the same time, also, the we started talking about the media industry and how it's in a great time of change because frankly, a lot of people, because they're getting their information from alternative sources, they're not viewing traditional sources of media, which
Right.
means traditional sources of media can't earn revenue because not enough people or less and less people are watching it or reading it. Um, that's very similar to what's happening to the film industry, specifically in the United States, with the advent of streaming, with the advent of breakdown of traditional money making uh, uh, policies for the film industry. There's a real big question about what the future of the film industry holds. That includes this changeover into a lot of digital graphics and digitally produced things, which has turned over so quickly. There are people who were masters at it 10 years ago whose entire fields have completely gone, and now
Oh yeah.
they don't have a job anymore because the kind of specific computers they were working on have all turned over into a next generation of things. And
Well,
so, with that kind of rapid change, there is no more a Hollywood studio system that can develop talent for a long
right.
time, which means people can have a job for a long time, which means you can have a solid base into which what you're proposing, having this studio system into which you can have clever films made to make the commentary about. But while things are a little bit insane monetarily for the studios, they're not going to take a risk right now.
Yeah. So this is also not the right way. Okay, I was in the past with my brain.
No, it's all connected. The world is in a period of great change and
Yeah,
conflict because of the
yeah,
change. And a lot of the things that we've depended on, whether it's news, whether it's media, whether it's the institutions of law in the United States, as I remind people that we might be pardoning hardened criminals in the United States as soon as Donald Trump comes to office. A lot of questions of the fundamental building blocks of our society will be put in question for the next several years.
yeah. We see a lot of horrible developments going on in the world, and I see the reason of all of that in the end is Putin. He
Oh
is
yeah.
he's really the guy who's the spider in the net in behind. He's really
Hmm.
chopping every good thing away. For example, our German Chancellor Scholz today.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes.
I already had 2 interviews about this.
Did you hear about that? He was calling
Yeah,
Putin today. Yeah,
yeah,
sure.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I don't have to tell you then. You had 2 interviews about this. Okay.
Well, because it's, when you're discussing Ukraine, this is the primary topic of discussion for today, that other leaders are feeling. I'm sure that Macron is right behind him, that he'll want to have a conversation as well and insert himself into having a conversation. This is what happens when the Pandora's box is open, which is the Donald Trump presidency. Now, everything that everybody agreed with when the alliance stood firm, we saw a very strong alliance at the 75th anniversary of NATO. Everybody was speaking from the same page. There were no discussions about NATO being unhappy with each other. All of a sudden, all of that's going to go away, even if that was performative, and even if that was just for show. Uh, we're going to eliminate the performative stuff, and we're going to elevate the internal conflicts. And who benefits the most from that? That is Putin. And who is stoking the fires for division within NATO, whether it's pitting Hungary against the other countries, whether it's causing division with Turkey. So long as the alliance stays whole, that's every single nation that's a member is a beneficiary. You don't stand against 29 other of the most powerful
Yeah,
military
yeah.
countries in the world. Why would you step away from such an alliance? It's madness. But there's plenty of disinformation and misinformation online to make people question whether they should remain a part of such a safety net.
This is crazy. It's absolutely yeah. I made another caricature. I might have sent this one to you also about the secret why Taurus missiles are not delivered.
Uh-huh.
So your government planes are not very secure. Should I be worried? Yeah. Well, this caricature has never been published anywhere because nobody would publish it because it's you will um but it's my opinion. It's another one. Here, this one.
Does he really think he will break our record? Wait and see. He's got fantastic potential.
So I think really that Hitler and Stalin have been really horrible dictators, but Putin might be worse even if we let him go. This was what Garry Kasparov was writing in his great book, The Winter is Coming. He was
Yes, yes, yeah.
he was writing, when we don't stop him, he will go on, and nobody seems to stop him, so he will go on, and
Yeah,
nobody.
he was talking about the fascism analogy from back then, or if you want to go to communism as well, the same kind of totalitarian reign. However, I think more so than either of those dictators in your caricature, Putin has been able to amass an enormous amount of wealth for himself,
Yes,
much more so than either of them. Uh, I'm not hailing those other individuals. I'm just saying that this is one of the reasons that he stayed around for so long, because he hasn't done all of the invasion of other countries that
No,
that those dictators did, but he's been focused on, while amassing the greatest number of wealth for himself and a little bit for some of his henchmen, but mostly for himself. While he's able to do that, he's been able not to topple other countries, but to make sure that they lower themselves. So
that's the problem.
it's not about elevating Russia; it's about lowering everybody else around it,
Absolutely, absolutely.
and then bringing it down to the level of Russia.
And now he has managed really to topple the government of his main enemy, the United States, which, I mean, Donald Trump is. I cannot tell exactly what will come out of. Nobody can tell this except himself. But the chances there that Trump can also make some big mess, and at least what we have seen on January 6th, 22, this was so incredible that Putin must have been a lot of Crimea sect going on, champagne bottles opened, but now it's even worse. So probably the United States of America, they are not really a stable ally in the NATO, and
Well,
and
I think there's still plenty of time to see what's going to happen. And the other thing is, Putin had two strategies that are going to collide right now. Before he did the full-fledged invasion, there was a strategy of manipulating President Trump,
Mhm.
and making him not be aggressive towards him. He obviously didn't make any statements. He sided with President Putin, saying that he has no reason to believe that they inserted themselves into the election and tried to manipulate things in the United States. So that was a strategy of manipulating President Trump. Then, when the Biden administration came in, they decided to do an overt attack, which breaks decades of UN policy, of Europe policy, of so many international accords, and begin this full-fledged war to agitate the West. It was also to see what would the West do in order to discover what they might do when Poland gets invaded or the Baltics get invaded. So so this is a separate strategy from manipulation, and these two strategies do not play nicely together. The war is still ongoing, and if the war is ongoing when President Trump takes his oath of inauguration, he is not going to be talking about solving it in 24 hours. He will be gradually more and more insulted and embarrassed that Putin insists on having this war that Trump said he could figure out. There's no benefit for Putin to keep the Trump presidency calm and ongoing. He's an elderly man, Donald Trump. He's not going to run simply because of his age for another term. So there's no benefit for him to make things easy on President Trump. And President Trump, who has been embarrassed and has been insulted, is probably slightly more dangerous for President Putin. So these two tactics by President Putin, he still hasn't figured out how to combine them together, how to bring the manipulation of Trump over into the same area as an active hot war in Europe. And unless he figures that out, there's a big chance of a backlash coming from the United States.
Yeah. Backlash like what? Like what
Uh,
could they do?
Backlash in the respect that Putin wants one thing. He wants back into the international order. He wants back into access to Western markets, removal of sanctions. So the more he agitates, the less likely that's going to happen. If uh, if he doesn't accede to having some kind of even normal pre-procedures into having a summit to figure out what this conclusion of the war would be, and he embarrasses Trump, insults Trump, there's no reason that Donald Trump doesn't continue to keep arming Ukraine, at least at the level that the United States has been doing now. Maybe even giving them more permission to use things against targets in Russia. The one thing you don't want to be doing is acting against a President Trump when you don't know what exactly he's going to do. And as we saw during his presidency, the bombings against Syria, he will probably initiate some kind of attack together with Israel against Iran. And any attack against Iran means that less weapons will come to Russia, from Iran. So there's many things that are still in action here. It's not that President Trump is going to pull back from the rest of the world as he has talked about on the campaign trail. The United States still will be all over the world. It's just a matter of which ones of his emotional buttons will actually turn into active policy.
Yeah, this is also what I hear many times. Um, so that is also the good conclusion about Trump, that he is not to be calculated, and
Yeah.
and but who is absolutely to be calculated? That was Biden, who was
Hmm.
reluctant, and Olaf Scholz even more. So I'm also glad that our German government now will be changed, and
Yeah.
I hope really much that that I mean I want the green one, Robert Habeck, that he would become chancellor, but he still has the Greens are, in my point of view, really the best. Who they have a clear view on everything. They are not so tactical guys and say, if I do that, then like happens this. They have an agenda. They are sometimes kind of naive and so, but they say what they mean. That's what I like. And
I think all over Europe, many Green parties, many of whom co-signed a letter to Jill Stein and our Green Party in the United States, asking her to drop out of the race for the benefit of the world. I think many Green parties are possibly looking at increased activity simply from the side of what's going to happen out of the United States. We are dropping EV sponsorship for electric vehicles. We are this is a campaign pledge that's probably be happening on the first day. Even
mhm,
as COP29 is happening, there are many executive orders being prepared for President Trump that are specifically about increasing, as radical as that is, to increase oil production or energy production in the United States at a time that we are producing record numbers of it. So there may be numbers coming into, and each Green Party in different countries is slightly different. But I think in a general sense, the Green movement all over Western Europe will probably experience slightly more attention and boom, because those countries will now be looked on to living up to the goals of the Tokyo Accord and other agreements.
yeah, okay. You see this towers here?
Yes, yes. Ah, you have it for the missiles. Huh?
Yeah, but yeah, you know what? Yeah, this was a Ukrainian artist who has made that.
Oh, really?
He's from Lviv,
Oh, wow.
and a friend of mine from Lviv brought me this beautiful piece.
Hmm.
It was 25 years ago. About
Wow.
nobody had
Wow.
any idea about what was going to happen, but now I saw this beautiful piece, and I thought it's a symbol for Taurus, so I just put it here for you, and
That's wonderful.
to to en- to encourage the decision makers to really finally deliver the Ukrainians what they need to. And at least I would also be for boots on the ground, because this is to to support Ukraine wherever possible, not let them all do everything alone. It's incredible. I've been talking to a soldier, a friend of mine, whom I met 2014 on a rally, and he is now a volunteer since the beginning of the war, and he is already almost 3 years now on the front. He was in Prokrovsk, and now he's in Turetsk, and so he says it's from one mess into the other, and
Yeah.
he says really I'm still here, I'm still alive, and saying that, exactly, maybe tomorrow he will be not there anymore. This is incredible.
It will require bold change and bold action. This is what happened in the Black Sea. The so-called blockade by Russia. All it took was the strength and determination to say we are going to send out civilian ships, and for the most part, it's been an enormous success of opening up the ports in southern Ukraine. As mined as they are, and as
Yeah,
much as we need to increase the facilities down there for exporting and importing. This is the same thing that needs to happen on a number of fronts. You mentioned boots on the ground. I think having, whether it's American contractors or soldiers from neighboring European countries who want to be deployed to Ukraine and have been asking for that permission for years. But the other dimension is the air dimension.
Incredible.
Where are the countries that are allowing these drones and other flying objects to cross into their airspace without any challenge,
Yeah.
without being shot down? Um, we all know what happened when Russia tried to do that and flew into Turkey when they were running operations over Syria. It only took less than 60 seconds for
Yeah.
their one plane to be shot down with zero nuclear war, with zero further repercussions for doing it. That's what you do
Yeah.
if you're serious about defending your territorial integrity. And unfortunately, whether it's from United States intervention or other European countries saying that you shouldn't be shooting these things down, I don't think that's the right message. And if we had been so careful in the Black Sea, we would have never gotten any ships out of Ukraine.
Right. But who is the boss in Turkey? It's a dictator,
Erdogan, yeah.
and that's why they have the don't know how to say this in English. They have the courage to do action,
Hmm.
and and that is one of the big disadvantages of a democracy.
Democracy,
We have
yes.
always our 4 years terms, and
Yeah,
then
yeah.
after 4 years, there's a new government with new people, new mindsets, new whatever.
Mhm.
And in contrary to that, dictator in Russia, he's 25 years in power now, also.
Absolutely. No end in sight. No end
Yeah,
in sight.
absolutely, and that's why he's a long-term strategic guy who is making long-term decisions. I heard that from Andrij Ilarionov,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
who was saying in an interview that already in 2004, Putin had all these plans in his drawer, his everything. He was,
Of course. Of course. Yes, yes, yes.
and that long-term strategy is completely missing here in Germany, in Europe, in the USA also maybe. And we have to change things there.
It's not just Ukraine. This is why we can't solve the climate crisis. There's a lot of problems that
Yeah,
need
yeah,
decades of
yeah,
work. I think
yeah,
the
yeah.
only place that long-term planning has really worked in the Western world has been transportation and infrastructure. It's only with the planning of rail lines throughout Europe or in the United States, some of our large water infrastructure projects that we've had over the decades. Those are the only projects that governments have continued on, even with change of administration.
But also
Uh,
this is deteriorating now.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because people, put it back into the pile of politics, and will change it from administration to administration.
Yeah.
But again, you mentioned the problems with democracy and the fact that this prevents us from having a common cause when when a fascist enemy attacks another. But there's a whole host of international issues that need to be solved that unfortunately, because of the democratic system, take much longer to do. In the words of Churchill, it's the best system after you've tried all the rest. So it's not the perfect system, but there's no other system that we've discovered so far that can best
I mean,
democracy for the rights of the people.
I mean, it's good that you mentioned Churchill because
Hmm.
he's the one who has been in the he has been waiting for his term for a long time until the rest they tried all the mess and then he came into
Right.
power, but the mess
Hmm.
was very big. So we
Right.
need another Churchill, but we don't want to have a bigger mess, but it's coming. So for me, Ukraine is really the key, and also for you, I know, it's the
Yeah.
key. It's the key to resolve the issue. If the Ukrainians, I mean, they are made out of iron. That's what they said.
Yes.
That's what
Yes.
Zelensky said. And but they need still they are still human beings and they need support, and that's why
They
I
need support. They need support to win. They need support to secure the peace, but they will also need a tremendous amount of support to rebuild the peace,
and to
which is a big part. They might be made of iron, but when the final armistice is signed, they have to go back and try to reintegrate into society. Not an easy thing. Are we going to put it on the shoulders of those people to rebuild the country? Um, they will need to fill their parliaments and their local state assemblies with those people there's still a long, long road back. Even if we're looking at the end of the war as one goal, that can't be the final goal, because the real goal needs to be stability and territorial integrity for the future. And as a historically oppressed people, I've tell Ukrainians all the time, if it's not this time, it'll be the next time. Somebody will continually try to invade, take over, genocide your people, because it has happened so many times of the century. You'd
Yeah.
be fools to think that this would be the last time.
Yeah, and also the other way, when I met my wife for the first time, she told me about those things, and she said, "Yeah, we have been oppressed all the time over the decades, the centuries, and it will go on." And I could not believe it, because I grew up in a free country,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
but this free country was supported and protected by the NATO, and they were.
Hmm.
So the NATO, we take the freedom and the security for granted, but it is not, and that's what we see now. I have sometimes an image in my head. Do you know the word Hotel Mama?
Yes.
It's that Hotel Mama. Yeah, it's a guy living at Mama's home for the whole time, and Mama makes
Yeah,
everything for
yeah,
him,
yeah.
and he's living there, and the guy is already 30 years old, and Mama
Hmm.
asks him, "Hey, you want to get a job?" Or what? Yeah, come.
It's very comfortable. It's very comfortable for the West.
And that is our attitude we have here
Hmm.
in the West, and Hotel Mama is not anymore now. And Donald Trump, praise him, he will throw the guy out, and that's what I was really happy about. I saw really Trump saying horrible things, and then the Western guys here in Germany, they woke up all of a sudden and say, "Oh, okay, so we have to put our military budget to 2%. Wow,
Right,
so
right,
much."
right.
So, and now we get aware that 2% is not enough. But so
Yeah, there's a lot of things that the world does not remember how horrible they are. In the United States, one of the reasons that this election was decided is that people were shocked about the rate of inflation in the United States, which was, as we all know, less than the other other major economies in the world. But we have not had inflation in this country, any real inflation, for over a decade. Uh,
yeah, so
you
didn't
know,
we?
people from a prior generation were very used to understanding that there would be 3, 4, 5% inflation on an annual basis. And that's how, and even with that inflation, they were able to build, infrastructure, housing, everything. People had solid middle class lives throughout the world, even with that rate of inflation. Once the rate of inflation was gone, it was the return that people were not used to. So the hotel mamas were scared because something happened that they were not used to, and which is a normal part of an economic system to have inflation. If you want your wages to go up, prices are going to go up. It's just a fact of the economy.
Yeah.
And much in the same way that the rest of the world has relied on the Western alliance to keep us safe, all it takes is one dictator to really test the limits of the alliance and see if it's actually still an alliance or not.
Yeah. There's another thing I have. I see also. It is that um, somebody who has got a lot of debts and still consumes is guy who
Yes.
This guy who we always talk of the dividend of peace, we call it here in Germany. Have you heard this word?
Yes, yes, yes.
So this is just the opposite is true. It's not the dividend; it is the debt of peace which we have
Yes.
here, and we are not willing to pay it back. It's like a
Hmm.
guy who's sitting in front of his television and drinking his beer and playing his games and so on, and eating his pizza and ordering it and so on, and then the bills from the companies, they
Yeah.
come into his letterbox, and he even
Hmm.
doesn't open it, the bills, because he knows I have so many debts. If I open it, it doesn't make any sense. I don't open it. So he
Yeah.
keeps on watching and drinking beer and eating pizza. But one day the police comes and arrests him. This is the image I've got in my head. Why those Western countries here, they behave like this, that they
Yeah.
they don't do anything here because they know if we do anything, we must really do horrible things which we don't want to. We have to go
Right.
boots on the ground into Ukraine, and we have to fight, and we have to kill people, and we have to be killed too, and all that we don't want. So let's carry on.
And don't forget, this will affect your economy back home. There will be repercussions for doing this. There will be somebody will have to pay for it. Otherwise, there are more debts. So that's the other reason people aren't doing things, because if you do something, you have to pay for it. If you have to pay for it, then the population will be upset. And if the population is upset, you'll get voted out. This is all in people's self-interest for the very short term and not doing the things for the long term, which the dictators get to plan for.
Here we are. So what to do? Andrij. Anyway, it was great talking to you. It's
Great talking to you as well. Thank you very much for reaching out. I hope to talk to you soon. I really don't know what my schedule is from day to day. I will have another midnight interview tonight with Ukraina,
Okay.
2 interviews in the morning, and then next week is pretty big. Next week is the G20 into the 1000th day. I know a lot of communities around the world are honoring the 1000th day of the war.
Wow.
This year, unfortunately, a lot of communities don't have time to acknowledge the Day of Freedom and Dignity, which is November 21st, which is both the anniversary of the beginning of the Euromaidan, but also it's the 20th anniversary of the beginning of the Orange Revolution this year. So we have no time because we have to honor the 1000th day of the war. And at the end of the week, it is the International Day for the Holodomor. So my week will be busy with all of these commemorations and events. I believe there are Ukrainian ministers visiting the United States next week as well. It's a very busy time as we ramp up for the Trump administration, but also try to deal with the world as it is right now. So.
Yeah, thank you for telling me all that. I didn't know half of it, or not even, not even. I will try to follow you somewhere
Okay.
on Insta, LinkedIn, or whatever
Sure.
on your channel. And yeah, that was the first interview I did for. Is it?
It was wonderful. It was very smooth and easy. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Andrij. It was a big pleasure. Hugs to your wife, to
Absolutely.
lovely
She's off
Pam.
at class right now, so
Yeah. Okay.
I'll let her know. Yeah.
Okay. And hope to see you soon again. Bye.
Thank you. You
Bye,
too.
Andrij.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.